one of the things that I've been often not actually attacked for, but certainly questioned, is why, when there are so few good parts for women, did you decide in this particular time of real concern about women and parity in the theater, especially in the arts, uh, why did you choose to do an all-male production of Taming of the Shrew?
The reason I decided to investigate this from an all male perspective, there were three things I can point to as making that decision. The first of which I just recently re remembered, which was a friend of mine had played Kate. I remember a conversation unrelated to ours in which she told me that the experience of being in a rehearsal process for the Taming of the Shrew as one of three women in the play, with all this misogynist invective being thrown at her, made her stop acting. And I just thought to myself, wow, that just, it blew my mind. Because, of course, yes, in a play that is characterized as a problem play that deals with misogyny, that is going to be the thing being thrown at the female the entire time of the entire play. And, unfortunately, I don't know the particulars of that rehearsal process, but I couldn't imagine putting a woman through that because I didn't know how it was I could liberate that particular body within the world that includes a female body. And so I began thinking of other ways to do it. And one of the other reasons why I felt an all-male perspective was authentic to me was it was the world I grew up in, which is it is a homosocial world that I knew. Because I came to England to go to boarding school and it was all boys. And we knew nothing about girls. We knew absolutely nothing about girls. We sort of talked about them and we fantasized about them and they were alien. And this culture may even continue all the way through Oxford, Cambridge, especially in Shakespeare's day. So I sort of had a fundamental instinct that in an odd sense, there was a connection between the homosocial world that Shakespeare grew up into that would not only help me identify what was shrew about Kate, but also I could connect to in my own upbringing. Because of course, misogyny is worst when it's casual and unaware. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think anybody ever intends to be misogynistic, but it is sort of an attitude that comes into us as we have dealt with in terms of racism, as we now deal with in terms of classism, that, it is an issue when we are unaware. And I remember growing up unaware. So it is a world in which you are misogynistic, but it is a problem inherited from the hierarchical structure of the culture around you, and not necessarily a point of view that is being obtained by you, the individual. And that, to me, is the problem of the play. When we discuss misogyny, the woman is not the problem. The male with the point of view is very much the problem. And that, to me, is what I imagined wanting to wrestle with when I put these bodies on stage. And I think the last reason why I thought an all-male perspective would be really interesting in this day and age was not only because a flood of my friends who are queer have just begun getting married, and so I thought, wow, this is fascinating. We have one of the few plays, if not the only play, please correct me if I'm wrong, that Shakespeare allows us to see beyond the veil of the wedding night, and we get two full Shakespearean acts after the wedding party in which we see the problem of what marriage constitutes in the play itself, when we usually end with the happy marriage for all. So I suddenly thought to myself, how interesting to be able to see a world that will always be read as a heteronormative narrative. It's still a man and a woman, as it would have been in Elizabethan times, getting married in this play, resolving their problems, but would always imply a homosocial narrative underneath it about two men playing that image without me complicating it further with issues of drag or not drag. Kate, being played by a man, will represent a woman on stage, but we will always be conscious that it is being played by a male actor, and so the story will have double meaning at all times. And what that released me into, which was, I think, most thrilling, is the ability to investigate today not only the place of marriage, but why it is beyond the legal, the institution itself persists when, as we all know, outside of the perspective of queer or not queer, there is so much divorce. So it actually sort of released the play for me in terms of, well, what if union between two people inherently is problematic within the rhetoric of for good, for bad, in sickness, in health, forever. And it has begun a sort of a real preoccupation for me right now, thematically speaking, of looking at the notion of coupledom itself as a pressure we inherit being born into this society, and perhaps something that clouds our ability to see ourselves within it, because we have been taught within the mythology of love to seek our other.